Okay, 19:1. Tov Rash Holech Bitumo Me'ikesh Safasav Vuhu Ksil. How'd you translate that one?
This is definitely one where you need to see how it's spelled. Otherwise, you're going to think it's
yeah.
The poor person goes in goodness. No, goes goodly in his perfectness.
So first of all,
better.
Yeah. Anytime you have tov blank may blank, that means better this than that, right? Tov blank may blank, right? Yeah. So better a poor person. Holich betumo
goes in purity.
Okay. Yeah. So there's different. I think. Let's see here.
Unblemished.
Yeah. So the most literal meaning. Have we had that in? I don't think we've had that in Mishlei yet. Have we? Tom Tamimos. Right, but so the literal meaning of tom is blemish-free, like a behemoth tamima, like a blemish-free animal, right? So the question is, what does it mean, like in particular cases? So let's just translate here. Better poor person who goes in his wholeness. Okay, I think like that's like the most literal, non-judgmental translation. Okay, I guess goes or walks, right? Okay, me'ikesh safasav huksil. Then what's a ikesh? Dor ikesh ufsal tol. That's in Hazino.
I decided I was going to cheat and look at Mitzvah Sion or Sadion. And
so there's no Mitzvah Sion. Sadion is very strange. Yeah. Okay.
He preserves me ikesh.
Yes, he does. So ikesh has two meanings. One is in biblical Hebrew, which is twisted or perverted or warped or distorted. Okay. So let's go with then one who is perverted in his lips. Okay. But then in rabbinic Hebrew, ikesh, and I don't know if this is just rabbinic Hebrew. This didn't show up in the Al HaTorah dictionary for biblical Hebrew, so I assume it's just rabbinic Hebrew. Ikesh is stubborn. Like ma'akesh is to be stubborn. So sometimes you do get like in Shlomo Melech Hebrew, uses of rabbinic Hebrew. So we'll just say perverted in his lips for now. V'hu, how do you translate that straight?
And he is a ksil.
And he is a ksil, right? Fool. Okay, yeah. So as you pointed out, there's no mitzvah tzion, right? So he doesn't. Apparently, he's not bothered. But look at Sadigon. Okay, I did not figure this out until just this morning. So he says me'ikesh. So me'ikesh bisfasav. Then one who is perverted in his lips. Okay, I think you kind of have to add that anyway. V'hu bal bitachon. So the question is, where does he get that from in ksil? I mean, ksil is a fool. Like that's just a basic Mishlei term, So I didn't actually look up this reference here. The footnote says in Munus Videos Mamar Hey Perek Zayin Kasav Manus Mitzad Ha'oni Yosrach Hashuvak Amru Tov Rash. So he's just proving from there that Sadigon translates as ne'emanus, as like reliability or trust, but like it's not really showing where he gets it from. So the only thing I can think of is I was like musing on this while I was waiting for shiur to start, and I associated it to a pasuk in Eov, and this is a total guess. Okay, people who are grammarians are going to have to judge me about this. So this is Eliphaz accusing Eov of like basically saying he deserved this punishment. So Eliphaz says, "Halo yirasecha kislasecha tikvasecha v'tom derachacha." So wasn't your fear your kisla? Okay, and kisla means confidence. So, and that itself is a very rare word. I think it only shows up twice in all of Tanakh. Kisla. Okay, so like if kisel in that sense or kisla means like trust or confidence, maybe that's where Sadion's getting it from.
But it's also weird because Mikesh Spaso does not sound like a good thing.
No, right. So if this is confidence, it's going to have to be like bad confidence, right? Is a confident person. Okay, and then so let's leave that just there. I don't think we should take that as the main translation because plain shot ksil means ksil.
I'm going to be extremely speculative.
Okay.
maybe the Mishlei term seal comes from that.
Ooh, I like that depth of speculation.
Yeah.
I mean, seal is confident, right?
Yeah, he's confident, but the way that Mishlei talks about the seal is how his confidence is misplaced.
Yes. I like that speculation.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you why that speculation is not as crazy as it would seem. That's on the level, except for the fact that you're not Ibn Ezra. It's on the level, you know what I'm going to say, right?
Yes, yeah.
Ibn Ezra on Tehillim, chapter 1, says that the term Russia means like unstable. And I forgot if he says this outright or if he or if this is just my inference. It comes like it's related to the word ra'ash, like reish ayin shin, like the of like being like turbulent, and he only explains it there, and like the presumption, or he explains it in a couple other places, but like that's not a normal meaning of Russia, So I wrote a blog post in which I theorized that like that's possibly the underlying idea of what a Russia is, even though Russia came to mean something else. So that's like what the move you're trying to pull there.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. I'll have to ask my grammar etymology friends what they think. Okay, so then just quickly the English here. Our scroll says, "Better a pauper who walks in his innocence." Oh, Targum, yeah. I think Targum is just straight translation. Tav miskena, better a poor person to behalach betmimusa, who walks in his tmimus. Again, that's just the noun. Minhu dima'akman or chaseh. Oh, actually, that is different. Who sachel. So ma'akman or chaseh means he perverts his ways. So he translates lips as ways.
Ma'akman means like perverts.
I think it's the same thing as like dofen akuma, right? Bent. Yeah, and sachel is just another term, is just ksil. Yeah. Okay, so Arsko says, better pauper who walks in his innocence. Arsko loves translating to him as innocence or simplicity. Than one who perverts his lips and is a fool. Living Knox is better pauper who walks in innocence than someone who curls his lips and is a fool. You can see how it's Alter says, better poor man walking in his innocence than a man twisted in speech who is a fool. Okay, I think those are similar enough that we can just delete that. Okay, so what are the questions and problems here?
Why didn't we use curl as our translation?
Is it?
What does perverted mean?
This might not be like the most basic question, but why is it that a seal is someone who is like
Okay, so good question. So how do we read the second half? Is it saying then one who is perverted in his lips and is therefore a fool, or is perverted of lips and fool two separate qualities? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is A plus B or A therefore B?
Yeah.
What does perverted mean here?
Twisted or distorted or warped, or are you asking an English word, or are you asking like the?
No, I'm asking like what does it mean? Like what does perverted lips mean?
Yeah, right. Okay, so what does ikesh sifasav mean?
What's the relationship between the two halves of?
Yeah. What is this is the hard one. What is the relationship between the two halves of the pasuk? And the reason why it's hard, well, you agreed with me. Did you or did you say when I said this is a hard one? Did you say yeah?
Like you expect. The first half sounds like better to be like poor, but like be act well than be like an evil rich person.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so right. So the in other words, we always ask the question, what's the relationship between the two halves? But here it's like in the first like Isaac saying, in the first half, it says poverty is one quality, and then holich betumo is another quality. Now, what corresponds to holich betumo, presumably in the second half?
Seal.
Oh, really? I would think not. I would think ikesh fasav, right? Because if Tom is like uncorrupted, then perverted or distorted,
Yeah, I mean it's part of what bothered me. The hook seal almost is like non sequitur.
Yeah, it's like an afterthought.
What I was asking.
Yeah, right. So like I think the ikesh fasav kind of corresponds to the holich betumo, but the problem is like Rosh is a poor person. There's no rich person. So like is the second half even about, maybe I can add this here. Is the second half about a rich person and it's just implied, or is it also about a poor person, right? And then seal, like it's just thrown in there like a non sequitur, and not just a non sequitur. It's a very broad non sequitur. Like you could just add the hook seal into any second half of any Mishlei pasuk that talks about someone who's making bad decisions. So like what's it doing there? And the first half doesn't say chacham, like which is usually the opposite of seal.
Right. Obviously, I don't know enough Mishlei, but is it possible he's defining seal here?
I would be reluctant to say that for two reasons.
Right.
One is, and this is, I guess, this is the main reason I'd be reluctant to say that is I don't see it from the pasuk. Maybe you could explain it that like that. But also, it's like a weird. Not that there's any place placement in Mishlei necessarily, but chapter 19 is just a weird. Chapter 19, like in the middle of the book, is just a weird place to define it. Like if this were like in the introductory chapters, or even in the closer to 10, which is the beginning, I'd be like, okay, yeah, maybe it's defining it, but yeah.
Also, I feel like it would say seal X, or like it would say that this is what the seal is, not that he is a seal.
Right. No, I mean you are trying to say like he is a seal is how you read the second half of the, right. I see that. And by the way, you could disprove me about the second point I made by saying, because I think in chapter 21, 7 or something like that, I don't know if that's actually true, but somewhere later on it defines, there is a pasuk that says, Zaid Yahir Lates Shemo, Osed Bavrazadon. So a haughty, malicious person, a malicious, haughty person, scoffer is his name, and that's just straight out defining what a lates is, even though he's used the word lates earlier, much earlier in the book. Or pesi yamin l'chol davar, which is essentially a definition of a pesi. A naive simpleton believes everything.
Which occurs later.
That's in 15 or 14 or something like that. Yeah. So that's fine. Yeah. I just don't see that as a way to read this right now, but I can be convinced because I'm trying not to be Ikesh defined as stubborn. Yeah.
I'd like to make a small positing about how to like read what this pasuk is talking about.
Okay.
That the person who's ikesh pasuk is doing it to some extent to avoid being rushed.
Okay. Yeah.
I think like the way that it is like set up.
Yeah.
It sounds like better to be poor, but still be like still be unblemished. Yeah. Than to twist your lips and whatever.
Yes, I think that's a good deduction. I'm just going to ask this question though here, which is you got to ask this whenever you see a puzzle with the word better in it. So better in terms of what? Right. The term better is absolutely meaningless unless you're talking about like a specific quality that you can compare the two in.
This probably isn't like the exactly a question to write down because I think this is like the whole thing, but like what's like the mechanism here?
Yeah. Is that, how different is that than saying for the first half, I think that would be answered in terms of the better in terms of what?
Yeah.
And the second half, I think a question would be like, what is the consequence?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So what is the consequence in the second half?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't say what's gonna, it just says the qualities or quality, but it doesn't say what's gonna happen to him,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess by mechanism, it really the phenomenon.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Also, how does twisting your lips get you rich?
Right. If we're gonna take,
that.
yeah, right. So,
I wouldn't even necessarily say getting you rich. I think that's already for the stuff. It's
not being rich.
Not being poor.
Right. Or so let's put it even more conservative than that, which is how does the person in the second half think that Ikesh Svasav will get him out of poverty?
Yeah.
Right.
Can we ask if it actually means poverty here, or we are?
Everyone says it means poverty. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yep. Everyone that I saw. I mean, certainly the mainstream.
This is a little already like towards giving an understanding, but we saw previously that being your socioeconomic status affects the way you speak.
Yeah.
So just like in that realm, I could understand a person like speaking in a certain way.
Yeah.
To avoid people deducing that he's poor.
Interesting. Okay, that's so the Ikish Svasa. So according to that approach, that's a good approach. Both people in the pasuk are poor, both right. But there's the guy in the first half who is not like trying to conceal his poverty, right? That's holik batumo, meaning like he's like he's poor and he's here to stay. I don't know. And then the second guy is trying to mask his poverty through his through lies or through distorted speech. That's a good approach. Yeah. So
can I add on to his approach?
Sure.
I like his approach. I wanted to say that the second half doesn't necessarily mean he still has to be poor. I mean, right. I kind of want to take perverted as like I want to use what Joe is saying as like if you're a low class citizen, you may talk a little bit less sophisticated as like a higher class individual. However, even if you're higher class, I don't know, maybe perverted here means vulgar or very not appropriate use of language, or I don't know if he's necessarily lying.
I hear what you're saying.
Then maybe he could have used sifsei shaker.
Yeah.
But it's more of how people perceive you than them themselves.
Okay, I hear that, right? So Ikish Fasav then would be in his manner of speaking, not necessarily like he's lying or something like that. Yeah, Isaac?
I have a speculative tie into the previous pasuk.
Okay.
So the person who is holik batumo would like he's not like trying to like conceal the fact that he's poor.
Mm-hmm.
And so for if he had like that means that like people who care about him will know the facts and be able to like help him properly.
Mm-hmm.
The person who's trying to like spin the situation in a way that makes him look good is gonna he's like doing it for like the like his like acquaintances, so that he looks good in their eyes, but it won't end up actually like he won't be able to like get help.
Okay, so all right, I can't tell if this is all one direction or if there are several directions here. A lot of stuff on the table now. Just out of curiosity, when you were saying your idea, were you were basing it off of the previous the context set by the previous pasukim, or you were just?
I mean, not like directly, but like with those thoughts present in mind.
Yeah, okay. I was kind of trying to take what you were saying and like.
Yeah. So Rabbeinu, spoiler, Rabbeinu Yonah does do that.
Yeah.
We'll see him in a little while, but that's the support here. Okay, so what are we saying then? So are we? Is this one approach that we're experimenting with here of the?
Well, I think.
At least for the first half.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
The way that I'm saying it is that the Ikish Vasav is that he's trying to like conceal the facts of his situation or to like spin it in a way that makes him look good.
Yeah, so you're putting the emphasis on the. I don't know if this is actually going to amount to a difference, but you're saying that he's not being honest about his situation. Ariel was kind of saying that people who are poor talk in a certain way or like vulgar, and he's trying to mask that. And then Joe, remind me again
that it's another poor guy who's both halves talking about poor guys.
Yeah.
The first guy is just speaks like a poor person.
Yeah.
He's a poor person. The second guy tries to deliberately cover it up,
right?
Like speaking in the opposite way,
right? Okay, so now, I feel like these are somewhat similar approaches enough that even if we interpret how he's being Ma'akish Fasav, it probably is going to get to the same place. Is that reasonable to assume until we're forced to do it differently, or should we treat these as completely separate approaches?
I think what Joe and I are saying are very similar approaches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure where Ariel fits in. Like it might be similar, it might not be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think I think Joe's saying like that in the second half the guy is like taking on the like upper class way of speaking.
Yeah.
To pretend that he is.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Is like it could be concealing the facts of his situation, or it could be just acting like a member of something that he's not. But either way, he's trying to deceive people about his actual poverty. Yeah.
But I think in Ariel, the way Ariel was saying it, the guy's not necessarily poor in the second half.
Oh, I thought he was saying he is.
I thought he was saying like better to be a poor guy who just knows he's a poor guy, than someone who has money but is corrupted by it.
I don't think that's what Ariel's saying. Ariel, is that what you're saying?
Wait, I'm saying that the second half of the pasuk he's not poor, not necessarily.
Okay, that part you are saying. Okay, fine. So that is a difference then. Okay, fine. Yeah.
I didn't look at the previous pasuk, so this is just.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and you don't have to look at the previous pasuk for this, but
yeah.
Okay, so then the question is, according to this approach, so let's just take this approach of all right, let's try taking Joe's and Isaac's approach of he's attempting to conceal his poverty first. Okay, just because that's more conservative in the pasuk itself, just saying that the entire thing is about a poor person, So then what do we? So what's the mechanism, right? So why is he? And what's the conceal? Like what is that saying? And how is he better? Like
Right, sounds like a pretty good plan. Like pretending.
We're gonna perhaps do a methodological no. But, what's the definition of conceal?
I mean, on a basic level, it is someone who is making decisions based on the immediate pleasure, because he and assuming that reality is going to be patterned after his wishes.
I mean, so maybe we could say that everybody wants something in life. People are always trying to get things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're saying it's better for you to, or especially if you're a poor person. But I think you could, once I say this, you could almost like spread it universally. But it's better to just be honest, like who you are, And obviously, people are maybe going to be less likely to deal with a poor person or give him what he wants because he's lower down in status.
Yeah.
But better to do that than try to cover it up, because you try to cover it up, you're inevitably going to get caught, and then it's just going to be worse than it would have been originally. And that's what the Kasil is saying, that the Kasil is saying that he's a fool. Like he's going to be exposed because you can't really keep up this act.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to know that you're a fraud, and then he's going to be worse off.
Okay, right. So what's the subject of the pasuk then? Like, what's the overall subject that unifies everything? And I agree with you that whatever idea we have, that sounds like an idea that could be universalized. But let's just keep it to, the situation in the pasuk, which has to do with poverty. Because I think that's the thing that bothered me the most about this pasuk, is it didn't seem easy to unify. Like, what is this about? What's the subject of this? Is it about poverty? Is it about like masking your state? Is it about lying?
Yeah, to me, it seems more about masking your state than the poverty itself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's almost just like the vehicle to bring out the idea, but it could have been anything.
Yeah. So I'm still not.
Yeah. The weird thing is, I think the tove.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why it's better to be like honest about your state than to like lie to yourself about it.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying lying to yourself or lying to other people? Yeah.
Or to be honest about lying about it, but like I don't really understand what's going on and like what the consequences of it.
Yeah. I feel like there's not enough meat on the bones. The Mishlei bones. Let me make an offer, which is so I when I was preparing this with Ken last night, we actually came up with 3 ideas. We have an idea we came up with on our own, and then we have Matsudas David, and then we have Rabbeinu Yonah. So maybe should we? I can just tell you that, and we could see that, and then either come back to the other approach tomorrow, or like maybe this will help us to get an insight into the other approaches that we're swimming along. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
I was just looking up this there's an expression that seems to be the opposite, which is dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So we were learning it. So the pasuk on its own. I think this is an interesting idea here. Okay. So we assumed that that both halves of the pasuk are talking about a poor person. Okay, and that we were assuming that the Ikesh Svasav is engaging in some sort of like lying in order to try to make money, right? Whether it's like being a con man or like cheating people in small ways or whatever. That's how, those are the facts about how we're taking. Okay, so the decision in the pasuk is, am I going to be poor and remain like honest in my dealings? Or am I going to be poor and like try to get rich or get out of my poverty by lying? Okay. And what the pasuk is saying is, if you are also a ksil, then you're better off just being poor and honest. Okay. And what's interesting about it is, I think what we're used to having a pasuk in Mishlei about like the honest guy who becomes wealthy and like the foolish guy who becomes poor. This is about someone who is in a state of poverty, and it's saying, okay, you got a choice. You could either lie to attempt to get out of your poverty, or you could just remain poor but keep your honesty. And it's saying that if you are a ksil, meaning someone who's short-sighted in his decision making, and is lacks the self-control to make decisions based on anything other than immediate pleasure, so you're going to end up destroying yourself if you try to lie. Like, you're going to be a con man that's going to be a failure, or people are going to find out about your operation or whatever. And so it's talking about and the reason why this is interesting is it's saying, this is not comparing good decision and bad decision. It's saying like bad situation and worse decision. That if you're poor and you are let's say impulsive or a bad liar or whatever, don't try to do stuff in a swindly way. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out for you. Like a horrible movie. It's a horrible experience to watch the movie. I don't recommend it. But Uncut Gems, you hear about that with Adam Sandler playing like this corrupt, like Diamond District Jewish guy. Yeah. He was like that. He was. Basically in the movie, he's a compulsive gambler, but like he involves that type of mentality in all of his dealings. He's just not cut out for being a swindler. Like it just, it like the whole movie is just watching a self-destruction of like this person who's like a victim of his personality, And like, I think that's the mistake. Cause I think the rationalization people have when they're in a situation like this is, what do I have to lose? Cause I have nothing, therefore what do I have to lose? In reality, you do have something to lose. You could get yourself into a worse situation. And the other thing also, and I don't know if this is a separate idea or just like pointing out the phenomenon here. Let's say the two people in the two halves of the pasuk are poor, okay? And let's say it's just due to circumstances, like coronavirus, you're a restaurant owner and like people aren't coming to your business or whatever, So the guy in the first half of the pasuk is poor, but he preserves his integrity and his honesty. And the second guy jeopardizes it by being dishonest. So what's going to happen is, let's say the circumstances change. Okay, so what ended up happening? The first guy, so to speak, invested in his integrity and in maintaining his pristine reputation. The second guy, in his attempts to like get ahead and get out through like a tricky way, ruined his reputation. So now even if his circumstances do change, that's going to follow him wherever he goes. The reputation of being a cheater or a liar. Yeah.
Just, are you saying though that if the poor guy in the second half is not a ksil, then it's beneficial?
Then at the very least he's not going to fall into this problem. There are other particulars about why you shouldn't be makesh svasav svasav in different ways. But that's why I'm saying like this is addressing a specific kind of decision. Now I'll universalize it, right? Of poverty in any area, and you say, what do I have to lose? Not realizing you could cause yourself more lasting damage if you go about it foolishly,
I think it's similar to the way I was saying it.
Yeah.
Just, I like what you're saying more because it's particularly in the poverty.
Yeah, I think that was the thing I was like looking for. Yeah.
But I think it's similar because the second guy, like he's trying to mask the situation he's in.
Yeah.
By like working around it.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas the first guy is just, okay, this is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess the difference is that I'm extending, and this is the part I'm not sure if this is in the idea, or if this is just a benefit of the idea, that the first person is not just accepting where he is, he's also making sure to preserve his integrity and honesty. Yeah, Isaac?
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
So first off, how are you reading Ikish Spasa?
One who speaks duplicitously, like one who lies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough
Just a second. Yeah.
Yeah. So my other question was just like in terms of like what the pasuk is like doing.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's trying to tell the seal not to do something harmful because of the long-term consequences. Isn't that exactly the issue that the seal has, that he doesn't seal?
Right. So the question there is, who's the pasuk talking to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess, so here I actually think that there's a real, I think someone who is a full-blown seal, pasuk's not going to affect him any more than any other pasuk, right? But I think when a person's in dire circumstances, then they are more prone to making rash decisions in order to extricate themselves from their situations. So I think it's possible here for a person to,
like, it'll bring out this element of her.
Yeah. In other words, this person might not be a seal in other cases, but if he's facing poverty and like he has to put food on the table, but he has certain seal-like tendencies of like lack of impulse control or something like that, then he might hear this pasuk and actually be affected by it. Did that answer your question, Isaac?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I liked your idea, but I just have like one question on it. Like,
Sure.
why doesn't the pasuk use the term sifsei sheker? Like, the only reason I'm asking is because I did a pasuk of Mishlei over Shabbos, and it used the term sifsei sheker, for someone who actually was lying. So
Right.
if translating me'ikish sifasav as lying.
Yeah, so I'm not super bothered by that because Mishlei uses unless you're the Malbim, Mishlei uses synonyms and we'll use different phrases for the sake of not lack of repetition or for poetry or whatever. Like for example, look at the Metzudas David. I'm just gonna get it on Al Torah. Metzudas David says that it is. Oh, hold on just a second. I am screen sharing, right? Yeah. Or you can see the Metzudas David, right? On the screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. Holech b'tumo, she'eno merame b'fiv le'esof hon, v'arehu ba'onyo. So he does not deceive people with his mouth to amass money, and he is in his poverty. So he's just learning it as deceiving people with his mouth. Mi'ikesh, mimishum akesh bisfasav l'ramos b'nei adam. Someone who is twisted in his lips to deceive people. V'hu halo l'ksil yichashev. So this is a different shot, by the way. But I mean, I was reading it just to show you that he's not bothered by the fact that it means deceit. But just one thing, halo l'ksil yichashev ki lo yatzliach ba. Won't he be considered a ksil since he will not succeed in it? So that's a separate idea. Yeah, Joe, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say also I know you said that it's speaking duplicitously.
Yeah.
And but deception is not lying. Like those are different. Like you can be telling the truth and be deceiving, or you can be lying and deceiving. So I think the Ikesh Svasov, it's like a little more broad than only lying. Mm-hmm. It's just any form of
That's true.
speech that could manipulate people.
Right. Okay, I hear that. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good answer.
Is he saying like mirma?
Yeah, mirma, he's saying, is not always involved lying. It could be like concealing certain things. It could be like, not spelling it out. So it is broader than that. Yeah. Which would fit in, right? Yeah.
Like
I mean, not specifically for lying. Yeah. Like
Yaakov's sons and whatever.
Oh, yeah. Right. I was saying like Yaakov himself. But I mean, that's because that's the term that Esav accused him of, the mirma.
Oh, yeah. There's another incident. It's with Dina, last expression.
Yeah. Right. So we had an idea for the Metzudas David, which I actually want to put on hold for 1 second to do the Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay, because I think the Rabbeinu Yonah is going to be a good capping off of the last two ideas we did, because he learns it according to the last two pasukim. So pasuk 20, just to go back for 1 second, pasuk 18:23 in Rabbeinu Yonah, Tachanuni midaber rash v'asher yane azos, is the poor person will speak with supplications and the wealthy person will answer brazenly. So there he said the idea, Rabbeinu Yonah said the idea is that poverty and wealth both bring bad midos. If you're poor, you're going to have to flatter people and you're going to be degraded and all that other stuff, and that can be bad midos. And if you're rich, you're going to be a jerk, you're going to be haughty, you're going to speak to people brazenly, you're not going to admit to the truth, and that's bad midos. Okay, then the next pasuk 18:24, ish re'im hisro'ev yesh ohev davek me'ach. So there he was saying that the rich person is going to have socially repellent qualities that are bad for friendships, even though people will be friends with him because of his wealth. And the poor person is going to have socially repellent qualities because no one wants to be friends with a poor person. Okay, so he says if you're in the middle, then that's like the best situation. Okay, now we have to our pasuk. Look at Rabbeinu Yonah here, and tell me if you see any differences in Rabbeinu Yonah that you have and the one I have here. Tov Rash Holech Betumo. After telling us that harm comes from poverty and from wealth, it comes to tell us which one's better. Okay, so now it's being machriya, it's deciding. V'amar, it says, Tov Rash Holech Betumo. Better to be poor and go with your integrity min ha'ashir than to be rich. Sheyachazik b'shleimus hamidos, namely that you should literally grab onto or strengthen perfection of midos, of character traits. V'lo yachatia ha'oni, and your poverty will not cause you to sin. V'lo yachshilehu, and it will not cause you to stumble, l'chabit harashaim u'lahatztik hachotim, to honor the wicked and to vindicate the sinners. Afal pi sheyagia buz min ha'oni, even though you will get a certain amount of degradation from poverty, ki it's tarach lebrios v'daber tachanunim, because you're still going to be dependent on people and speak in a supplicatory way. Okay, me'ikesh sfas v'huksio, then better that than to be someone who's perverted lips and is a fool. Tov harash holech betumo, min ha'ashir shehu ikesh bisfasav v'one azus. So he learns ikesh as stubborn, like I mentioned. Okay, so better to be a poor person who walks with his integrity than to be a rich person who is stubborn with his lips and answers brazenly, like we saw in 23. V'huksiel, and he's a fool. La'achar shehu ikesh sfasayim ksil yechashev gam im lo yimtzu avon asher chatav b'masav. Interesting. He will be considered a fool since he's stubborn in his lips. He will be considered a fool even if he doesn't actually do a sin in action. Okay, because people will look at this guy and say, look, this is like this stubborn rich jerk who refuses to like admit to the truth. He talks in a disrespectful way to other people. He thinks he's always right. All the qualities that Rabbeinu Yonah listed earlier.
Yeah, even if he hasn't actually done that.
Even if he hasn't actually done anything foolish, right? And in another place, it's written, Tov Rash Holech Batuma Mi'ikish Drach, I think this is Drachayim, if I remember correctly, V'hu Ashir. Better a poor person who walks with his integrity than one who perverts his path and is rich. So he's saying that that's essentially what this pasuk is saying.
Oh, didn't Targum?
Yeah, you're right. That's probably where he got it from. Good point. Right. Yeah, that is Drachayim. Yeah. And he says, Uvakan Hutrach Lichtov V'hu Ksil. Here it needed to write, and he is a Ksil. Lahoros ki ha'ikish b'sasav ksil yechashiv kamo chota before kapav. In order to show that he will be considered a fool in the same way that you'd be considered a fool if you acted foolishly. Okay, so what's the idea according to Rabbeinu Yonah? So again, you have to take this with the two other psukim that he did. Okay, in the two psukim, he's building the argument that wealth and poverty both bring bad midos. Okay, and it also affects your social relationships. Right, 23 was bad midos, 24 was social relationships. This pasuk is saying, okay, so if you have to choose which one is going to be better for your midos, so he's saying you're going to be better off being poor. Okay, now the question is, why is that, and is that true? And the argument he's saying is because the rich guy, even if he's not doing anything wrong, then because of his bad midos of wealth, one of which is stubborn lips, he's going to be viewed as a fool. So the question is, okay, fine, so he's viewed as a fool. So like, what's so bad about that, you know? So I'm essentially asking, what is the idea of the Rabbeinu Yonah? And is it true? Like, you know, because it's clear what he's saying, but in terms of like the structure of his interpretation, you know, like you've got to pick the poverty. Yeah.
Saying about the Targum.
Yeah.
He also, by the other pasuk that he includes, he also says Dim Atman Arpase.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll throw this out here, and if we want, we can think about it more tomorrow. But what we were thinking was like this: is that we're talking about a certain kind of rich guy. Okay, Rabbeinu Yonah has painted a vivid picture of him. He's arrogant, he's haughty, he trusts in his wealth. He's, he quoted the pasuk before of Chacham be'inav Ashir, so he's a Chacham be'inav. So we're talking about a guy here who really does care about his reputation. Okay, so for that guy, being considered a fool is like death because it's the thing he values in his wealth. He likes being viewed as a rich guy and who is like, has all the good qualities of a rich guy, being a chacham and like being a self-made man and all this other stuff. And he's going to be viewed as a fool because of his personality, and you could imagine this. And again, I just think this is, it's hard for us to remember now. Before Trump became president, then his reputation was the rich playboy, risky venture like person. And look, his personality was the same before he became president. You can bet that he was aware of what people said about him behind his back, of being like brash and being like arrogant and being, and being like, I'm sure the same thing that people said about him, like that detractors say now, which is like, he basically just like was handed his wealth on a silver platter and like he squandered it or whatever the thing is. Like, I'm sure people said those things when he was growing up also, because that was the social circumstance he was in. And I feel like that is very painful to the person who prides himself on his wealth, whereas the poor person, it's true that he's going to be dependent on people, and that's not good. And it's true that he's going to have to speak in a supplicatory way and maybe engage in flattery. But it's not a personal degradation in terms of something that he himself prides himself on. The rich person prides himself on his wealth and is being considered a fool because of his wealth and the midos that the wealth gave. The poor person, look, what else is he supposed to do? Like, he has to ask people for money and whatever. But he's being machazik b'shleimus hamidos. He's maintaining his perfection of midos, which is how it seems the Rabbeinu Yonah is explaining walking with his integrity, and he's got that intact. And so he has a certain social degradation, but it's not at his very person, And I'll add one more thing also, which Rabbeinu Yonah doesn't say, so I might be projecting this into the Rabbeinu Yonah. If you go to the Rambam in Hilchos Deos, and he talks about the middle path and the two extremes, he mentions that there are certain extremes that are easier to fall into and certain ones that like you're not drawn towards, and it's like an uphill battle to get there. So for example, on the spectrum of indulgence and asceticism, it's much easier to fall into indulgence, or anger and unfeeling-ness, much easier to fall into anger. So I would argue here that it's true that poverty and wealth both engender bad midos. I think though the bad midos that come from wealth are much, much more powerful and much harder to escape. The arrogance and the thinking that you're smart and the talking to people dismissively and brazenly. I think it's very hard to be rich and to not give into those bad midos. Whereas if you're poor, then it's true that some people, when they're poor, that can ultimately affect their self-esteem. But if this guy says, okay, look, I'm poor. If I want to get money, I'm gonna have to talk in a supplicating way to a rich guy. He can separate himself from like the strategy he's using and like maintain his midos here, and then just say, okay, fine, I got to do certain things in order to get by. But it's not like when you're surrounded by like the not taking misplaced pride in your wealth is very hard. So and you see that the Nevi'im all the time talk about how Klal Yisrael, what's their downfall going to be? They're going to become wealthy and forget Hashem. Not they're going to become poor and forget Hashem, They become wealthy and like take advantage and say kochi votim yadi. It's not the poverty that gets you, So I think that I know that's not what the Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, but in terms of the way he's learning this pasuk in conjunction with the other two, I think you're going to be midos wise, you're going to be better off facing poverty than facing wealth in terms of your midos. Yeah. Okay. Just one more thing. Mitzudas. Yeah, I want to think of we had an idea for the Mitzudas David also, but maybe we'll save that for tomorrow or not at all. Alrighty, sounds good.